Welcome. I'm Tracy Smith, and this is Here Comes the Sun, a closer look at some of the people, places, and things we bring you every weekend on Sunday morning. On this special edition, we feature interviews and exclusive excerpts from our sit-downs with the actors, producers, and directors behind 3 films, all nominated for Best Picture at the 96th Annual Academy Awards. We begin with Bradley Cooper. Composer Leonard Bernstein is responsible for some of the most enduring melodies of the 20th century. Bradley Cooper directed and stars in a biopic exploring the maestro's genius, loving marriage, and complex inner life. Here's Mo Rocca.
Last summer we had really good grapes.
Nina Bernstein Simmons, Alexander Bernstein, and Jamie Bernstein gathered at their family's Connecticut home to talk about Maestro.
So how long do we have to do this for?
Well, we need to build up a very strong connection.
The movie that Bradley Cooper has made about their late parents.
And how much time do you all spend in the house now? Or?
Every chance we get, weekends and lots of summertime, and it's heaven here.
Much of the movie was filmed in this house, where the children share cherished memories of their father, composer and conductor Leonard Bernstein, and their mother, actress Felicia Montealegre. And if you're wondering how these 3 feel about the movie Cooper has made...
I think we have an intruder in this house.
Oh, stop it!
Bradley Cooper not only co-stars, he also co-wrote the movie and directed it.
So much!
Much of this movie was. We shot so much. Many things occurred right here.
The creative person sits alone in this great studio that you see here and writes all by himself and communicates with the world in a very private way.
It's Cooper's second film as a director.
We're far from the shallow now.
The first was the hit A Star Is Born with Lady Gaga. Still, he needed the consent of the 3 living Bernsteins to make the movie. He met with firstborn Jamie in a New York restaurant.
I eat with my hands all the time, and I'm eating the spinach with my hands, and I recognize it, and then I either apologize for something, and you said, that's what my dad used to do.
Oh, yeah. Corn on the cob was his favorite thing.
And I remember in that moment, I thought, oh, this might happen.
The young American-born assistant conductor of the Philharmonic Symphony, Leonard Bernstein.
Cooper immersed himself in the life of Leonard Bernstein, who from the age of 25 was a bold-faced name in American culture. The longtime conductor of the New York Philharmonic.
Today, we're going to talk about the meat and potatoes of music, the main course.
The man who made classical music approachable through his televised young people's concerts on CBS. And the composer of symphonies and landmark musicals, including West Side Story and Candide.
Sopranos make sure that you make space so that the high notes can soar.
Becoming Bernstein meant looking like him at various stages, and the transformation is startling.
And it took 4 years of tests.
The makeup is amazing.
Oh, yeah.
If summer doesn't sing in you, then nothing sings in you.
You may have read that Cooper's makeup includes a prosthetic nose that the non-Jewish actor used to portray the Jewish Bernstein. The Bernsteins themselves are more than fine with that.
I just want to point out that Bradley has a very substantial nose.
He does.
And I don't think anybody noticed that before the fracas happened. It's the absolute non-issue of all time.
I'm thinking of a number.
But Maestro is not a womb-to-tomb biopic. Instead, Cooper decided to explore the relationship between Bernstein and his lesser-known wife, portrayed by Carey Mulligan.
Oh, well, I was listening. You were wonderful.
Our mom was the most elegant, delicious person.
Theirs was a love story, yes, but complicated by the fact that Bernstein also had affairs with men.
She didn't go into the marriage blindly.
Not at all.
She knew exactly what the deal was.
They obviously loved each other to death. They never fought in front of us. We never saw any darkness. We felt a lot. They kept everything very well tidied and pretty well hidden.
But as a young woman, Jamie had questions, as depicted in the film.
So the rumors aren't true.
Her father didn't tell her the truth.
No, darling.
I know exactly who you are. Let's give it a whirl.
In her 2018 memoir, Jamie reported that shortly after their wedding, her mother wrote to her father, quote, "I'm willing to accept you as you are, without being a martyr and sacrificing myself on the LB altar." And you wrote in your book, but the truth was she had done exactly that.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I don't. Maybe you don't feel that way, but I feel like it cost her everything to stick with it. It was really tough for her, and I think it contributed to her early death, in a way.
I wouldn't go that far. I think, probably she regretted a lot of things looking back.
Felicia Montealegre died of lung cancer in 1978 at the age of 56.
She had a wonderful, rich life and mostly wonderful marriage and a lot of love.
There's a price for being in my brother's orbit, you know that.
As much as Maestro is a love story about a marriage, it's also a story about Leonard Bernstein's love of music, including Mahler's Second Symphony.
I've never experienced anything like it in my life, and I may never again.
Were you actually conducting the musicians there?
Yes. It took me 6.5 years of working on it for 6 minutes and 25 seconds of music.
Leonard Bernstein died from a heart attack in 1990 at the age of 72. He and Bradley Cooper never met.
But
Do you miss him?
Oh, yeah, man.
What do you miss about him?
It's hard to talk about. I don't know, we shared something very special, the four of us. It's hard to even articulate. But he was with us, he was with me certainly throughout the entire time. His energy has somehow found its way to me that I really do feel like I know him.
And now here's an exclusive extended interview from Mo Rocca, Bradley Cooper, and the Bernsteins, something you can only see right here on Here Comes the Sun.
When you first met them, did you know the story that you wanted to tell?
No.
You didn't know?
No,
I
knew nothing.
So when you first met with them, what were you asking?
I had just finished A Star Is Born, so they were all, I'd say, can you see A Star Is Born? And then it really was like, I asked Santa Claus for a baton when I was 8. I worked very hard. And I'm going to dive in, and trust me. I just didn't lie. I didn't make up something I didn't know, because I didn't know at that point. But I knew that I was absolutely obsessed with this music and conducting, and I had a huge furnace inside of me for it. I knew it. I just didn't know what it was going to be, but I was going to dive in and do research.
We didn't even know how big the furnace was. We didn't even know.
What do you mean?
Well, when Bradley takes a deep dive, he really goes
all the way,
many, many fathoms in and down. And I know that Josh Singer, who co-wrote the screenplay, said no matter how many books I read, Bradley read more books. No matter how many videos I watched, Bradley watched more videos.
And now let me ask the three of you, what was happening to your father when he was conducting? What do you think was going on inside of him?
Oh, well, he talked about that some. He would just get completely lost in the process. And he often said that he felt like he was channeling the composer, especially when he conducted Mahler. And so he was just so in it that he would lose all sense of place and time. And if it was a really intense experience, at the end of the piece, he would be sort of out of his own body, and
Yeah,
it would take him a minute to sort of come back to
He
earth.
described it as loss of ego.
Loss of ego.
Yeah.
And you know, that moment, his Carnegie debut, I mean, he's talked about, you know, he doesn't remember anything.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
He doesn't remember when he filled in for Chris.
Yeah, the minute the downbeat began.
Yeah, and the next thing he remembers is, you know, the applause.
Jamie, I saw something somewhere where in this house that you used to sort of run into your father sometime in the middle of the night. Is that right?
Yeah, we would run into each other all the time in the middle of the night because we were both night owls. So around 2 in the morning, we would run into each other, you know, raiding the refrigerator in the kitchen, and would wind up just talking about all kinds of things and eating our snacks. So that was lots of fun. That happened all the time.
Yeah, that's very sweet. Did the three of you, crave more of your father? Because he gave so much, but he gave so much to so many people. Did you feel like there was enough for you?
We're used to sharing him with the world. That's been a given from the get-go. But we got a lot from him.
When he was home, he was really
home. When he was, what did you say about his being present?
He was always present.
When he was with you, he really was with you. That's where his attention was. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who are in the room, but they're somewhere else. They're not with you. And so I, for one, am tremendously grateful for what I did get. I'm not greedy enough to ask for more.
Yeah, I think we all pretty much felt like that. You know, he was on the road all the time. He would be gone for weeks at a time, sometimes a month or two. But then when he was home, he spent so much time with us. We would come out here to Connecticut on the weekends, and he was really there, really around, you know, yakking with us, having dinner and playing our word games and swimming in the pool and playing tennis. And so there was really a life together that was so nourishing that it really made up for the absences.
And for the three of you, if there's one thing more than any other that you think Bradley has in common with your dad, what would it be?
Oh, you know, a lot of things. We didn't even know in the beginning. It gradually occurred to us as this whole journey was taking place. You know, he's actually a lot like our dad. The intensity and total immersion in the work. That's really similar.
Talk about being present.
Really.
This is maybe the presentest guy you ever met.
Totally.
So there's that, and just, you know, absolute commitment and absolute focus.
And perfectionism.
That's a lot.
And
It is a lot.
And artistic genius.
And for the three of you also, if there's one moment that you think will stay with you, or that even just when you were at that screening that was painful, exhilarating, that hit you the hardest, what would it be?
Oh, come on.
It depends which time we're seeing it.
Can I talk? Can I
Yes,
talk about it?
please.
Even though you didn't ask me. I don't know if you remember this, but we saw many versions. They came over to my house, a little screening room in the basement, and which was beautiful. Which I think that they realized, like, it really, you know, to watch this sculpture be made, you have to go in different directions, and it's very meaningful, you know. And depending on what direction, it's a different movie. And then the final version, when they came over, for me at least, it was I'll never forget it. And we all hugged at the end, and
we were destroyed.
And so oddly enough, it was the same exact position that in the movie when they're hugging their mother.
It's never occurred to me.
And I thought that in that moment when, like, you know, your head was buried here, and if you saw the movie, I assume.
Yes.
So that scene where after the clapping song, do you remember that moment?
Yeah.
And then Felicia's cutting his hair, and then he brings everybody over. That is what occurred in real life.
Before Emma Stone and director Yorgos Lanthimos teamed up for Poor Things, the pair worked together on 2018's The Favorite. Their strong personalities and artistic trust in one another has led to another critically acclaimed work. I caught up with them amidst the award season buzz.
Miss Stone up top! Miss Stone, Miss Stone!
If you've seen Emma Stone on any red carpets lately, then she's kind of hard to miss. You might have noticed a tall bearded man close by. He's Greek film director Yorgos Lanthimos, and it seems he and Stone are, in a professional sense, joined at the hip.
How much time have the two of you spent together?
Like hundreds of thousands of hours.
And it's all been magical.
Every second has been like a dream.
This is Bella.
It might be more like a fever dream.
Good evening.
Her brain and her body are not quite synchronized.
Lanthimos directed Stone in her latest film, Poor Things, based on the Alistair Gray novel of the same name. It's an updated take on the Frankenstein story. In this case, a brilliant scientist transplants a baby's brain into a recently deceased woman, Bella. She quickly evolves from being a really big toddler to a really smart adult who learns how to dance, how to read, and how to think.
You're losing some of your adorable way of speaking.
I'm a changeable feast, as are all of we, apparently, according to Emerson.
Critics have called the film fantastical and sumptuous. It's the result of a collaboration between Stone and Lanthimos that they both say could be pretty intense.
Do you fight?
Yeah.
Yeah.
About what?
We won't right now.
I mean, fight.
No, we don't fight. We really communicate strongly in those moments, but I think we always resolve it relatively quickly.
We can speak to each other freely, so it helps.
Lanthimos breaks down inhibitions by having cast members play theater games in rehearsals rather than just read through the script, and he likes to keep his set quiet.
You don't yell, action?
I don't. No, we like to ease into things. In general, we try to create this atmosphere which doesn't create tension.
And it all seems to have worked. Lanthimos acquired the rights to Poor Things years ago, but when he tried to sell the idea to studios, he got the cold shoulder. So then he made another film, one with a more conventional artistic vision, 2018's The Favorite, starring Rachel Weisz and Emma Stone.
So my secrets are safe with you?
All of them.
Good.
Even your biggest secret.
Abigail?
The Favorite was also a favorite at the Oscars, with 10 nominations and 1 win, and Lanthimos' reputation soared.
Did The Favorite give you the juice to be able to do this?
Yeah, people were asking me what it is that you want to do next, and I went like, Poor Things.
I can't let you go.
If you do not, Bella shall turn rotten with hate.
And his patience seems to have paid off. The film has already picked up a number of awards, but Stone says her character was a challenge to play.
Was there ever a moment when you thought, oh, I don't know if I'm going to get this?
Yeah, the whole time. Yes, the entire time.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't think there's been a day on set of any film, of anything I've ever done, where I've been like, I really got it today. That was exactly what it's supposed to be. I mean, I think that's for any creative person. You see something in your head, or you feel like it should be a particular way, and then it has to come out of your mouth and your body and all of that, and it never matches up to what exactly you have in your head. And it's like a constant state of acceptance, and for an actor, hopefully presence.
And the Golden Globe goes to Emma Stone.
Of course, she needn't have worried. The Golden Globe voters thought she got it just right. But Stone told us that worried is her natural state of being, and that she's been that way since she was very young.
Do you still have that anxiety?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Not to the level that it was when I was a kid, because I have therapy, or I have tools now to manage it in different ways. And as the years go on, you start to learn more about managing what that is. But yeah, I mean, that's my operating system.
Now, have you figured out how to kind of channel it for good? Is that possible? If it is, please tell me. Is there a way to channel anxiety for good?
Oh my God, are you kidding me? Anxiety is like, I feel so lucky to be
anxious.
Yeah.
Why?
Because I think it can be sort of like a superpower sometimes. Anxiety is very activating. It gets you out of bed. You kind of can't just stay in one place. It sort of forces you to keep moving. I don't know, I find a lot of positives from it.
And it seems she's made the best of it.
You say there's nothing here, well, let's make something clear. I think I'll be the one to make that call.
What's your call?
A case in point, her performance in La La Land, for which she won an Oscar.
I still have a lot of growing and learning and work to do. And this guy is a really beautiful symbol to continue on that journey, and I'm so grateful for that.
And now Stone and her latest movie are once again in the Oscar conversation. But she says she tries not to let it all get to her. Is there a way that you get ready for it or something that you tell yourself to navigate these waters?
No, just to try to hold everything lightly and not cling too much to any of it. And also, you know, to not take yourself seriously through that, which I don't really struggle with. That's not really an affliction that I struggle with. Taking myself super seriously, because if you were me, you wouldn't take me seriously either. But it's, yeah, I think you can take your work seriously and not yourself seriously.
She is serious about her partnership with Yorgos Lanthimos. They have another project in the works, and more on the way. And yes, their film may be called fantastical, but fantastic might better describe the real life of Emma Stone. You moved out here when you were 15 years old. Is this career, this life, kind of what you were dreaming of?
Oh, it's so far beyond what I dreamt of. I feel so unbelievably grateful on a daily basis, truly. I really, really, really wanted to be on a sitcom. And I can't believe that I get to work with people that I admire and adore and trust, and have been able to play roles that are just so far beyond what I ever imagined, and it's nuts. Yeah. And I still am open for sitcoms. If you've got anything that you're thinking about.
We'll make sure we put that out there.
Okay, thank you.
Here's an exclusive excerpt from my conversation with Emma Stone and Yorgos Lanthimos. You were talking about how you never feel like the performance is good enough, or there, or you have it.
Yeah, I don't know if it's feeling like it's not good enough, so to speak, because that's also very subjective, which is why I like acting, because I have such I'm not saying OCD in a flippant way, I have an actual OCD issue. And so anything, when I was growing up, like anything that could be measured, I was obsessed with acing.
Like?
Tests, report cards, like anything that you can, like for instance, I played flute. You know, in band class, you have to choose an instrument, and I was terrible at flute. I can't play flute, but I was first chair because I tried to do it all exactly correctly. Yeah, it's a combination of like an anxiety and an OCD. You know, it was extremely debilitating when I was a kid. I mean, really debilitating. Like constant panic attacks. I mean, panic attacks are not something that you can go like, just look at the bright side. You're having a panic attack and it feels like the entire house is on fire and like you're about to die. You know, you can't really do that in those moments. So it depends on the level or the time period I'm going through. But I have always found what I get to do for work to be helpful.
When you first met, did you click right away?
Yeah.
What was it?
His style. His sense of style. What was it for me? Was it my style too?
Of course, yeah.
My fashion sense.
Seriously, what was it? You guys met.
Our sense of humor, I guess.
Yeah. Our sense of humor. There's like a general ease, and you know, when someone has a similar sense of humor, it makes it much easier.
Let's talk about the rehearsal process first, because the rehearsal process is not your standard. You get a script, you go over the script. What's your rehearsal process like?
Why don't you explain it?
Well, it's really exercises and games and theater exercises and games. And I think what we're trying to do is get everybody comfortable with each other, have the actors get to know each other, be able to have fun, try things, and make fun of each other without feeling too self-conscious. Yeah, and it's very physical.
What's an example of a game, a typical game that you would do?
I mean, the one I always talk about is like we walk around, a bunch of us, you know, one person has a chair, and then a bunch of us, the rest of us, walk around with our eyes closed. And then whenever we feel moved to, we start to sit, and the person who's holding the chair tries to get the chair under you before you fall. But because all of your eyes are closed, multiple people can be sitting at the same time, so you kind of have to choose who to save, and then some fall on the floor. I mean, all of it is very silly, but really effective in feeling, I don't know, like he's saying, comfortable with each other, intimate with each other. By the time you're on set, after 2 or 3 weeks of doing things like that all day, you have a real ease, I think, amongst the cast. And also with him, because, you know, he's orchestrating these, and you sort of, I mean, Willem always says, because I'd worked with him before, obviously, but for Willem, who hadn't worked with him before, he says, you know, he could kind of get a sense of him as a director and things he finds funny and the things that he comes up with, because they're pretty improvised by you, the games. So he's sort of just making them up as we go.
It's interesting because it's fun, the rehearsal process, and you want it to be fun, but then you, Yorgos, once you get to shooting, kind of stop having fun?
I stop having fun, yeah.
What happens?
It's just very stressful for me, shooting. I mean, it is a stressful thing in general, because you have a certain amount of time each day, and you have to get things done, and, you know, what you make that day, it stays like that forever, and you rarely have the chance to go back and redo something. So that's, you know, nerve-wracking for me. So every hour of the day is just a very intense experience for me. So I think I do, like, in between.
You definitely have pockets of fun in between.
When it's actually happening, the moment that the actors are, you know, doing it and it's happening, I think those moments I kind of enjoy, because I don't know otherwise how I would keep doing this thing. But, you know, the moment it stops, you know, like I go back into reality and realize how much time we have, or if something's not going well, and if we're gonna go, you know, over and won't be able to do the next scene, or, you know, it's just like a lot of practical things that weigh on us. I mean, it's many people that share the weight.
So you're miserable through that process,
So
and then
I'm
you come
kind of
out of it again?
miserable. Yeah, and in between I have these glimpses of joy, enjoying, you know, the actors and what's happening in front of the camera. But you have fun.
I have fun
during,
the whole time.
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah, I have to. I
Why?
can't function otherwise. I don't know. I think it closes me up to be, you know, to lean into heaviness or that level of intensity while I'm working. Because you have to be able to be kind of like agile and you know, go from emotional state to emotional state as an actor all throughout the day. So staying in a more kind of lighthearted, silly headspace is, I find, much more beneficial than, you know, like carrying the weight of things. So he gets to do that, and I get to be just a dork all day, which is great.
I get to be a dork all day. That's not a bad job.
Yeah,
We need both.
Great
we
job.
need balance.
Two of Martin Scorsese's most famous collaborators, Robert De Niro and Leonardo DiCaprio, are working together in one of the director's films for the first time. Killers of the Flower Moon is a true American story about the brutal murders of members of the Osage tribe. Lee Cowan sat down with Lily Gladstone, Scorsese, and DiCaprio to talk about the film and the care they took to include the Osage in the process.
On the plains northwest of Tulsa, Oklahoma, where oil rigs outnumber the bison, lies a stain so dark it makes the crude look crystal clear. A tragically true tale of man's inhumanity to man.
Oh, I was sent down from Washington, D.C. to see about these murders.
See what about him?
See who's doing it.
Trying to be as truthful as possible is the only way to tell these stories.
This wealth should come to us.
Oscar winners Leonardo DiCaprio, Martin Scorsese, Robert De Niro, and a relative newcomer, Lily Gladstone, teamed up with Apple Original Films to bring David Grand's best-selling book, Killers of the Flower Moon, to life.
It's so simple. The front is the front, the back is the back.
He has to make it look like he done himself.
It just looks like murder. It's not supposed to be that way.
In this case, it's not who done it, who didn't do it.
Set and action!
It's a sweeping epic, 3.5 hours long, shot on location on the Osage Reservation in Oklahoma, where in 2017 we joined author and journalist David Grann.
We're talking about scores of murders, and we're talking about a very small population.
Killers of the Flower Moon took Grann a decade to research. Each thread he pulled took him down a darker road.
This is a story that has real evil in it. Evil like I've never covered or ever experienced or researched about before in my life.
Really? Was that dark?
Yeah, yes.
The Osage. They have the worst land possible.
That evil showed up when the money did. The Osage land was long thought to be worthless.
But they outsmarted everybody. The land had oil on it.
In the 1920s, oil was discovered here, which almost overnight made the Osage among the wealthiest people per capita in the world.
Money flows freely here now.
I do love that money, sir.
Like a magnet, their newfound prosperity attracted outsiders, white men mostly, who came not just to bilk the Osage out of their oil money, but to inherit it.
The only way you could get their money was to marry into their families and then to slowly target them.
At this Osage cemetery in Greyhorse lies the evidence that entire families were wiped out, either shot, blown up, drugged, or poisoned. Ernest Burkhart wormed his way into the Osage family tree by marrying an Osage woman named Molly back in 1917.
You talk too much.
Their real-life love affair, as troubled as it was, is where the film begins.
What was that?
That's how you are.
I don't know what she said, but it must have been Indian for handsome devil.
The heart of the entire situation you're in, love, the trust that goes with love, and then this extraordinary betrayal, and still loving. Now, how do we do that?
The short answer, carefully.
We did our absolute best to listen to the Osage community. I don't know if we did a perfect job, who knows, but they embraced us and were so incredibly helpful and so vulnerable.
This is an Osage war shield, typical of that time, that era.
Principal Chief of the Osage Nation, Jeffrey M. Standing Bear, knows the risks of letting Hollywood in.
Native Americans have always had someone else tell them the story about us, but we wanted to tell our story.
When we spoke with the cast and crew, they were all on that same page, especially Martin Scorsese.
You deal with Native Americans and indigenous people, you got to make sure everything we do is as authentic, as accurate, or at least is reasonably accurate from what can be remembered as possible.
And respectful. So to that end, he hired as many Osage as possible, both in front of and behind the camera.
They really worked hard at this and earned our respect.
You felt comfortable with the way they were going to approach it?
If you're not comfortable with Marty Scorsese, you're not going to be comfortable with anybody. I tell you.
I don't sleep anymore.
DiCaprio's co-star, Lily Gladstone, has critics raving.
I don't even know if you love me anymore.
Molly, of course I love you.
She grew up on the reservation of the Blackfeet Nation in Montana.
She brought so much to not only her character, but to the entire film. She was an amazing partner to have.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
It seems like that's emotional, though, for you to hear.
I mean, I guess I could try to choke it down and put it somewhere else, but why? Yeah. It is. It is. It's a big responsibility and it's terrifying. It's hard being a Native actor, having this much that you can audition for. Yeah, Marty showed me what's possible.
Monseska kontaska. Ajin milonke konta achaska.
The film called for her to speak fluent Osage. DiCaprio and De Niro had to master that language too.
The language itself, how hard was that?
It was tough. I mean, he has the benefit of, like, I mean, you did an incredible job, and you also did an incredible job of doing it the way a white man would say it.
That's my job.
For Hollywood trivia buffs, this is the first time that DiCaprio has worked with De Niro and Scorsese on the same film at the same time.
The two of them are so incredible together. Their shorthand, the way they communicate, it's almost through sign language. It's nods, it's this, and I know. I mean, it's incredible to watch.
You said that you have sort of a shorthand with Robert De Niro. What do you have with Leo?
A longhand.
Longhand?
With me, it's a long discussions, grinding things, lots of rehearsals.
Expecting a miracle to make all this go away. You know they don't happen anymore.
For David Gran, seeing all of this come together was both satisfying and to him a bit mesmerizing.
My world is not in Hollywood at all. I am a nerd 24 hours a day.
We caught up with him just before the film debuted for the Osage in Tulsa back in July.
The idea that now we're standing here and there is going to be a film and more people are going to learn about the history, to me that is what is so powerful and remarkable about it to me.
Gran ended his book with a conversation he recalled having with an elderly Osage woman. As she looked out across these plains, she quoted scripture. "The blood cries out from the ground," she said. All these years later, perhaps those cries will finally be heard.
Again, an extended talk between Lee Cowan, Leonardo DiCaprio, Lily Gladstone, and Martin Scorsese, something you can only see right here on Here Comes the Sun.
How important was it? There were so many Osage who were in the film itself. How important was that for you?
I said immediately, well, I knew that going in. I said, I was going to say actors, but we need the people. They can act. We all act. Some less concerned with the camera than others. And we'll just discover that as we go. But it has to be Native American. It has to be indigenous. And that's as simple as that. But not only that, they said, what about behind? I said, behind the camera too. If they could do it, do it.
How many did you end up having on the whole project?
A couple hundred, I think. I'm not quite sure. But it just was a natural outgrowth of the whole project. You can't go there and suddenly come in like a group and then leave and say, okay.
Could you have done this anywhere else, or did you really need to be here?
We had to be here. You had to be in the right places. You had to be here. And we worked it so that we actually shot. In Pawhuska, we shot in the Schoen Brothers offices, the real office.
Really?
And the actual Freemasons Hall, too. They're still there. So.
How closely did you work with any of I know you worked with the Osage itself, but did you work with any relatives? Did you have a chance to talk to anybody who?
Yeah.
That must have been sobering.
We sat down with Ernest and Molly's grandchildren. Margie Burkhart, who's heavily featured in the book as well. She sat and talked with us, spoke with us, some family stories to kind of help us flesh out what this dynamic may have been. And on set, as an extra, we ran into Billy Burkhart, another one of the grandchildren of Ernest and Molly, who's still now, when I come back here, he's a very sweet, quiet man. I'll just be in conversation with somebody and I hear over my shoulder, "Hi, Grandma." I turn around, it's like, "Oh, hi, Billy."
But it must have been sobering too, I guess, because for them this is not that far removed.
It isn't. The generational effects of this, you still feel it. It's still tangible, and I think our job, more than anything, was to listen, because as detailed and incredible as David Gren's book was, it did focus on the birth of the FBI, and this turned into, the original script from that turned into almost a detective story.
It's more of a whodunit.
Like a whodunit. And coming here, I think, especially for Mr. Scorsese and us, opened our eyes to not only the Osage culture, but not only how much it affected generations to come, but how active the Osage were as a part of bringing justice to what happened. So I think a lot of our job was to sit and listen to, direct descendants of people that were affected by the Osage Reign of Terror and really try to incorporate their story and their truth into the movie we were making. That was our job.
Yeah.
I'm Tracy Smith. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you here next time on Here Comes the Sun.